Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is our second day of going through the book that is Fathers of Nations. And like I said yesterday, this is a journey we are going to take together through this book to have a feel of what the book is about and what the author intended to achieve by not only naming the book Fathers of Nations, by the pictorial presentation of the book, but also even the content in the book. So yesterday we were able to do the cover design, the interpretation of the cover, that is the front and the hind cover, the information that is there, both pictorial and written. And today I want us to go deep into the book, and I want us to go straight to chapter 1, and we are going to have chapter by chapter analysis from chapter 1 to chapter 14. The book has got 14 chapters. And this is how we are going to do our analysis. We are going to have a brief summary of what the chapter is about, after which we are going to look into the themes that have been brought out in every chapter. We are going to look at the characters that are in that chapter and the character traits that are in that chapter and their roles in the chapters. We are going ahead. We will also go ahead and talk about the themes or the thematic concerns in the chapter, as well as the styles that have been used by the author in that particular chapter. Now, summarily speaking, chapter 1 revolves around 6 characters, 4 of whom we really don't hear of in the rest of the chapter, other than the first or the second page, the second or the first third pages of the chapter. The chapter has got 14 or 15 thereabout pages. Now, the first character is a character known as Professor Kimani Karanja, who comes from Kenya and who is a professor in the Institute of Development in the University of Nairobi. The next character is called Pastor Chineke Chiamaka, who comes from West Africa, that is in Nigeria, and he is a pastor in a church called Church Inside Africa in Nigeria, that is Abuja. The third character is Comrade Ngobile Melusi, who comes from Zimbabwe, and we are told that in his form that he was filling, the form, the part of job description was indicated not applicable. That is NA. So simply put, he cannot be described by his own profession like the first 2 characters. And the fourth character is Saif Tahir, who comes from Tripoli, Libya, and we are made to understand that he's an atomic bomb engineer who was initially working with the Ministry of Defense in Tripoli, Libya. And the 4 people have all been checked in to Seamount Hotel. And when you look at the manner in which they have been checked into the hotel, it is so much telling. Kenya is in East Africa. So Professor Kimani Karanja is placed in the what we call the East Wing. And which floor? He's placed in the 4th floor of the East Wing, and he's about 65 years old of age. The next one is Ngobile Melusi, who comes from Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is in South Africa. He is checked into the southern wing of the 5th floor of Seamount Hotel. Then we have Chineke Chiamaka, who comes from West Africa, that is in Nigeria. He is about 50 years old of age. He is checked in the west wing of the 6th floor of the hotel. Then you have Saif Tahir, who comes from North. He's checked in. He's about 45 years old. He's checked in the 3rd floor, the northern wing of the hotel. Now, that is the end of the 4 visitors as far as that chapter is concerned. Now, the story now changes and now focuses on 2 particular characters. The first character is Dr. Abiola Afolabi, who has been invited by the heads of state as an advisor, as they shall be debating the content of the Peace Way Omega. And this is because he's an academician and he understands a lot of things that are bedeviling Africa, and this can be revealed by his authorship of the book Failure of States. Now, we are treated to a conversation involving Fiona Mackenzie, who is a journalist by the Gambian News, and Dr. Afolabi. And in this particular conversation, Fiona Mackenzie attempts to get the idea or the opinions of Dr. Afolabi regarding the goings on in Pinnacle Hotel. That is the meeting in the Pinnacle Hotel about involving the heads of state, the 49 of them. And it also tries to seek to know what his opinion is regarding Way Omega, if at all he has read it, if he associates with it, and the relationship of Way Omega to his book, or with his book, which is entitled Failure of States. That conversation starts well in a very friendly note by them exchanging jokes here and there, but the conversation or the interview gets nastier when Fiona Mackenzie asks a lot of questions to Dr. Afolabi, which irritates him in the process. And as a result, he begins to become temperamental and abusive. And the conversation or the interview ends prematurely when Fiona Mackenzie's boss calls her and she decides to walk out of the conversation or out of the interview. Towards the last part of the chapter 1, Paul B. Vitta brings about the irony that goes with the title Father of Nations. That fathers are meeting somewhere and a lot of corruptions are taking place along the checkpoints. A lot of inconveniences are done to the helpless population, where their livelihoods in the name of kiosks along the roads are brought down in the middle of the night, so that roads are recarpeted, water is stopped from flowing into the tap so that they can use, which is an essential commodity, and that water is directed to Pinnacle Hotel where the heads of state are meeting. It is ironical that fathers of nations are meeting and then children of a nation are deprived of their basic rights or basic needs in a bid to please the incoming or the visiting heads of state. That's all in chapter 1. And I will start by talking about the themes that are in this chapter. As far as my analysis is concerned, chapter 1 has got only three major themes that I was able to identify. The first theme comes in page, that is in page 7, and I'm seeing the theme of optimism. When Fiona Mackenzie interviews Dr. Afolabi regarding his opinion on the meeting heads of state and the content of the discussion of Way Omega, he's a bit optimistic when he talks about change in African politics, dramatic change in African politics, and he says, just think of it, no more military coups, no more rigged elections, well, no more foul play, period. That is theme of optimism or theme of hope. Another theme that I was able to identify in this particular book comes from page 11, which is the theme of poverty, and the fact that we are able to see several families depending on kiosks built on roadsides and which, after being demolished, is like their livelihoods have been brought to a halt. That means that bigger population or greater population of most of these African countries, the Gambia also included, are reeling in great poverty. In the same particular page, we see the theme of corruption or bribery, and here we are able to be told, that this way guards get even more basis for extorting bribes from passers-by. The fact that we have got checkpoints that are leading to where the presidents are meeting, and there are guards from one checkpoint extorting money and bribing passers-by, is something that is worth noting. That is the theme of corruption. Now, these characters that are in this particular book, I will start with the character trait of Professor Kimani Karanja. Professor Kimani Karanja, when the first caller comes, when the strange caller makes a call, and remember, it is worth noting that this strange caller makes a phone call to the four of them in the order in which they checked into the hotel. And when this particular caller calls, he directs them to use some specific code 1124 to be able to unlock the code of the briefcases that they have been given and that are containing specific documents or a list of items that they're supposed to acquaint themselves with. And another funny thing about this particular case is that this particular caller does not state his name. He only recognizes himself as as a guide. That is suspicious enough. And the briefcases don't open on first attempt for all those 4 particular individuals. But when first Professor Kimani Karanja picks the phone call from this strange caller, he appears calm, he appears composed, despite the provocations, the 1-2 provocations that come from the voice. He remains composed to get the full gist of information from this particular caller. The next character we are going to talk about is Dr. Afolabi. Dr. Afolabi in this particular case, in page 5, appears very friendly. When he meets Fiona Mackenzie for the first time, he's very friendly to her. She is able to exchange jokes with her. In page 7, Dr. Afolabi in the first paragraph appears to be very inquisitive because he's asking a lot of questions to the interviewer, that is in this case, Miss Fiona Mackenzie. Dr. Afolabi appears very abusive when the debate continues to persist in page 9, and he becomes abusive. Look at the statement that he uses. Instead, I just see one of those fire eaters who confuse journalism with bad manners. That is bad attitude, that is bad taste, that is being abusive. He confirms his abusive nature in page 9 in the second last paragraph when he says, on further thought, let me note, I don't think I have to defend my book before anyone, least of all before a third-rate reporter for the Zambian news. That is being abusive on the person or on the job of Fiona Mackenzie. Dr. Afolabi in the same page also appears to be very, very temperamental. When he asks questions to Fiona Mackenzie and she does not answer, she gets temperamental, appears annoyed. I think that is all about Dr. Afolabi. Fiona Mackenzie in this particular chapter appears to be very honest and truthful in page 7 when she talks the truth about the political situation or what African presidents are. And she says, Dr. Afolabi, not all of the heads of state assembled here are fair players. In fact, a few are out and out foul players. They rose to power through military coups or rigged elections. Those won't be walking a long way, Omega, anytime soon, will they? So that is very honest, that is truthful of Fiona Mackenzie. Again, Fiona Mackenzie, when she meets Dr. Afolabi for the first time in page 6, she appears very friendly. Look at it, to my 35, imagine that. Go have your picture taken right now, Dr. Afolabi. You won't always look this good. They are sharing a lot of pleasant moments with Dr. Afolabi that reveals her as somebody who is very who is very friendly as a person. And in page 9, Fiona Mackenzie appears as composed and calm, because when Dr. Afolabi goes ballistic on her and begins to abuse her one after the other, she does not also explode. She remains calm throughout the whole conversation. That is all concerning Fiona Mackenzie. Now, which styles have I been able to identify in chapter 1? I've identified a number of styles. So the first style I've been able to identify is simile, which is vastly used. We have simile in page 1, the second character, sorry, not in the second character, the third paragraph. The statement like wriggled over his mouth like a moth fighting to free its wings, then fly away. That is a simile. Last paragraph, page 1, he looked like a failed sumo wrestler. Page 2, second last paragraph, like heavy rain of ink. That is a simile. Another style that we are able to identify, another simile is in page 5, third last paragraph, cute as a button and sharp as a needle. That is simile. Now, another style that we have in this particular book is the style of just a minute. We have the style of idiom. We have an idiom in page 8, paragraph 1. Change is always like that, Miss Mackenzie. One side of it has defenders of existing arrangements. These show about their loss if those arrangements end, fight tooth and nail. Fight tooth and nail is an idiomatic expression. Page 8 has got the style of irony. It is ironical that despite the fact that Dr. Afolabi has got a very pessimistic attitude towards African states and their presidents, and has even gone ahead to write a book, Failure of States, he comes and he tells Fiona Mackenzie that he's very optimistic, that something good will come from the Pinnacle Hotel where the heads of state are meeting. And this is what catches Fiona by surprise, by asking, and even shocked, and Fiona asks him, is he being optimistic because of the content of Way Omega, or because he has been invited to the summit? So those are some of the things that make Dr. Afolabi to be temperamental. Another style that is very evident here is in page 10. And in page 10, something happens that is foreshadowing. That is a foreshadow. The interview between Fiona Mackenzie and Dr. Afolabi does not end. It ends prematurely. And this foresees or foreshadows the premature manner in which the meeting in Pinnacle Hotel is going to end. Another thing that happens in this particular conversation is that Fiona's boss actually calls Fiona, a boss we are not able to see, a boss whose name we don't even know, but the boss calls Fiona, and Fiona stops the interview because we expect that Fiona would be working for the same boss, and the boss is not likely to interfere with the interview. But why would this boss call Fiona Mackenzie, and Fiona Mackenzie would disrupt and wind up a conversation that was talking about Africa, about the good things that are likely to come to Africa? It foreshadows the manner in which the meeting involving the heads of state and the voting of the two documents where Omega and Path Alpha are going to be bungled, and strange forces, unseen forces, are going to make phone calls and are going to interfere with that discussion, and it will not end well. It is going to end in disarray. It is going to end without conclusion. It's not going to end with satisfaction from both parties. In page 10, again, we see the style of sarcasm. It is sarcastic when the author says this: 49 foreign heads of state were in Banjul for the summit. All looked happy, and why not? Had they not escaped from troublemakers in their home countries? It is sarcastic that the author is calling Africans who are demanding for services from their leaders as troublemakers. Actually, this sarcasm reveals the attitude of most heads of state towards their subjects. They call those who demand for their rights as troublemakers. There's irony in page 11, another irony in page 11, paragraph 1. We expect that when heads of state come to visit a country, that is foreign exchange, there's a lot of money in circulation and all that stuff, and therefore there are a lot of businesses and the economy is going to benefit. But in this particular case, it is ironical that their visit in Gambia is an inconvenience to the natives, because there are a lot of disruptions that are taking place both in the security sector, both with the social amenities like water and other stuff. So that is ironical. We have rhetorical question in page 13, the third last paragraph. What happens when the guests are not just guests but presidents? That rhetorical question brings about the poor leadership and selfishness in the lives of heads of state in Africa, where when they meet, there's a lot of exorbitance, there's a lot of misuse of resources, there's a lot of wastages, because they carry along with them so many people in the name of delegates, and as a result, these delegates are taken care of by voters' money, or the citizens' money, or the taxpayers' money. And this is ironical, because as the taxpayers are suffering, few leaders are somewhere in a far-off country, even with huge delegations that cannot even be taken care of by the host countries. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all I wanted to say today concerning this particular book. But as I conclude, I want to finish by saying this, that these four characters who check into Seamount Hotel are symbolic. Actually, there's the style of symbolism in this particular chapter, because Kenya, East Africa, for Professor Karanja to be checked into the eastern wing of the hotel, it symbolizes the East Africa. Saif Tahir is checked into the northern wing to represent North Africa. Bobile Meluse is checked into the southern wing to symbolize the Southern Africa, as well as Chineke Chiamaka, that is pastor, who is checked into the western wing of the hotel to represent or to symbolize the western part of Africa. Now, one major thing that we need to conclude with in this particular chapter is these four people are not ordinary people. In as much as they are ordinary, these people are people who are angry with this government. And they are angry with this government because those systems have got people who have hurt them, who have hurt their families, who have hurt their ambitions, and they have got grudge against most of those heads of state. Now, when we see Professor Kimani Karanja, a very good professor of development studies, it reveals of how much poor leadership, or it symbolizes how much poor leadership can be able to hurt the education of a country, because Professor Kimani Karanja symbolizes actually education and academia in African countries. When you look at Chiamaka, Pastor Chiamaka, this is a man of God, this is a servant of God who is running a church. And the bad regimes or the poor leadership in Africa does not spare him. He also has a story to tell, a bad story to tell, because he also undergoes several tribulations. In the process, we have got Ngobile Melusi, whose academic background and job portfolio is not revealed. It also shows that and symbolizes that when there is misrule, when there is bad governance, even those who are common mwananchi, those who in our Kenyan situation are called hustlers, equally suffer like those who have got job prescriptions or those who are employed by the government. Last but not least, we see Saif Tahir, who is a representative of the IT world, the ministry, the defense and security issues in different countries. When there is misrule, when leaders don't rule well, when they make mistakes in their leadership styles, even those people who are dealing with infrastructure of the country, security of the country, communication infrastructure of the country, they are equally affected. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very political book. This is a very volatile book. This is a book that you must read with a third eye. And I can assure you, if we walk this journey together, we are going to reap big, and we are going to help our students to have a deeper understanding of this book. Finally, last but not least, if you bump onto this video, please press the subscribe button. Other than pressing the subscribe button, we request you that you give this video a thumb to like it, and please do not forget to forward this video to your friend who is in another school, or your neighbor, or your churchmate, or your brother, or your relative whom you know is going to interact with this book in his or her life in high school. Thank you and goodbye.